recording. Okay, so now let's go into and understand the basics of Android Studio. What is Android Studio, how we use, and the initial basic first program we will be developing using Android Studio. Okay, now once you start Android Studio for the very first time, do remember that Android Studio will do some background installation again. Okay, so the first time you run Android Studio, you will be dependent on something called background installations. So you will have to again wait. Once the installation is complete, then you can start working with it. Okay, so it shows me new tip. Let me close this and let me come back to file, new project. Okay, in fact, let me just close this project. There we go. And now we have this window called new project. Okay, so for the first time you run, you will be brought to this particular window if you have already not run it multiple times. Okay, so once you first time execute it, this is the basic window where we create new applications. From here you can see it says phone and tablet, Wear OS for mobile, what we call smartwatches, Android TV based applications, or automobile based applications that come up in your automobiles. In cars, we know that nowadays we have Android phones, Android displays in cars as well. Okay, so this is where basically mostly we will be doing. We will be working primarily with phone applets. Now your task is to develop various different applications using Android Studio, and it gives you the starting point. Basically, this is the starting point, that it's already there. Some basic activities, some basic information is there. All you can start using this. So for example, you want to create an app that has a settings kind of an look, in which there are multiple settings, just like we have in any Android. You can start from here. Excuse me. ठीक, so इसी तरीके से हम आगे जब बढ़ेंगे तो basically you will find that there are multiple different activities that you can use. आप मैप बना रहे हैं, चाहे full screen activity चाहिए, bottom navigation चाहिए, anti composite activities आपको चाहिए, या whatever you want to work with. ठीक है. So the first or usually we do is we either go with an empty activity or we start with the basic activity. Empty में क्या होगा कि कुछ भी नहीं होगा, blank, absolutely nothing is involved here. When we go with the basic activities, उसमें basic एक button और एक आधी operation by default बनाया होगा ताकि आप वहां से कंटिन्यू करें. तो at certain times we go with a blank, at certain times we will start with basic activity. Okay, तो ये आपसे मैंने empty activity पे फिलहाल क्लिक कर दिया. So as soon as I click on it और ये click next, तो आपसे पूछेगा कि भाई आप जो activity, अब आप एप्लीकेशन बनाने जा रहे हैं, अब आप मोबाइल ऐप बनाने जा रहे हैं, तो आपकी बेसिक मोबाइल ऐप क्या कहलाएगी. ठीक है. So what I do is I said okay, this will be my BSIT app _1, ठीक है, _ hello HELL hello WORLD world. Okay, so this is now my first app name. Okay, BSIT app 1 hello world, ये मेरी application का नाम हो गया. This will be my app name that will be displayed even when I install my Android phone device. Sorry, when I install my Android app, the name of the app on my Android will be this name. So we be careful. This time I'm just giving it as a temporary name ताकि हमें बात थोड़ी समझ में आ सके. लेकिन प्रॉपर्ली जब हम एप्लीकेशन बनाएंगे तो नाम वाज़ेह देना लाजमी है. शुरू में करेक्ट नाम देना इसीलिए लाजमी है ताकि फिर आगे आपको प्रॉब्लम ना हो, वरना आगे की जितनी भी फिर इसकी डिपेंडेंसी है वो एक्चुअली इस नाम के साथ कनेक्ट रहती है, तो नेम को तब्दील करना फिर एक अलग ही सर का दर्द हो जाता है. सो नॉट रिकमेंडेड. Then you would find that it automatically creates a package for you, com.example.bsit app1 hello world. Okay, now this is an example package. We will talk more about this package later on, how we need to change it or what other packages we can use instead of this word example, so that we can deploy the application online when we go on to Play Store. But for now, we use example, no problem. As I said, don't confuse with that. When you need to deploy your app on Play Store, basically we recommend that you change this package name. Okay, because every app in the world will have example. It creates conflicts, and Google says don't use this word. Give your own customized name. So, but for now, just you leave it to default. Don't do anything. Save your location. Where do you want to save your project? That's again very important. Where your project needs to be installed. in my case, I will say, okay, go inside the D drive. And inside D drive, let me create a folder. Android Android apps class. Okay, inside this Android apps class, I will create this folder. Save it. Okay, usually I don't save it in C drive, my own wish. Okay, you can save it anywhere, leave it to a default line, don't worry about that. So this is a location. Now here, which language you want to work with. Like I've said, basically we will be doing Java because we have already studied Java, so it's way more comfortable. However, अगर आप लोग Kotlin पे करना चाह रहे हो, Kotlin पढ़ी हुई है तो आप उसके ऊपर भी कर सकते हैं. ये this is basically Google's own customized language. You can use that as well. We prefer to use Java. It's more easy, in other words, and it has more larger what we call community. So when you search online, you can easily find lots of tutorials on Java easily. Okay? So when you get confused, if you don't understand anything, if you want to do anything online, basically this is where it comes in. तो आप बड़े आराम से इसके बहुत जबरदस्त tutorials आपको Java based आराम से मिलेंगे. It has a larger community, in other words. So we recommend going for Java. And since you have already done that in previous class, it becomes considerably easy as well. Second thing is the most essential. Which SDK you want to use for your development? Okay. Do you want to use Android 5.0 Lollipop? Do you want to use latest versions or previous older versions? Now, what happens here is that if you choose, for example, default Lollipop Android 5.21 version of the API, it says that your app will approximately run on 94% of current devices. This basically means that once you use this software API, basically you means कि आप Android का ये वाला version इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं. You are using this particular version of Android. अब जितने भी दुनिया में phones हैं जो इस version को support करते हैं, उनके ऊपर आपकी application चले पाए. Those mobile phones who do not support the particular version will not be able or might not be able to run the current app. So you need to be careful. If you are developing an application for a company that needs to ensure that the app is run on multiple devices across the board, so it has to be that particular thing. So don't go and try to use the latest version, because if you do, you will see that only 39 to 40% applications, mobile phones are compatible currently with API 28 or what we call the 9 pi version. Okay, so entire world, only 40% people will be able to use it out of 100, which is a very limited market now. So you're reducing your chances of your app being used by lots of people. So that's why we go for certain older versions which are at maximum level. Okay, so in my case, I will be using API 21 Android 5.0 Lollipop version. That's what I've installed, and sometimes we go even back, but I'm using that. Okay, if you want to target even older versions, you can go for Android Jelly Bean as well. Now you see it says 99.8%. So the older phones who do not get updated will still also be able to run your applications. For me, I have go from Lollipop 5.0 forward. That's my choice. For you also, I recommend initially at the development level, we work with 5. Then when we start with developing professional applications, you just need to be aware that which API is more suitable for your larger audience. Okay. Then we click on finish. So basically this is just a new project window. We don't spend that much time here. You just give it a name, let everything be default. If you want to change location, change it. Make sure you select Java language, and I leave the API to 21 as my default API. Okay, so we just give it the basic operations. Then we come here and click on finish, but it gives me a warning here. Project location should not contain white spaces. Okay. So what I do is I remove the white spaces from here. Okay, because this location will be used as your API path. So it is said that do not save it here. D is not writable. Please choose a different location. Uh-oh. Let me create a new folder. Android Android app class without the spaces. In here. This one slash, let me copy the folder name. Now it's okay, finally. Okay, so again, one more tip. Do ensure that you don't give spaces in your folder name. Even in folder name, even in your app name, it's not recommended that it should not have spaces, because then that same name will be used as an API package names and path name. If it includes spaces, it creates problem, like it just did. Okay, so let's go finish. What it will do, it will go and build your basic project for you. Okay, and now you can see it says loading BSIT app 1 hello world Android. It is developing what I refer to as my basic activity or main activity, and then this is something called my, so it's activity main XML and main activity.java files. Two files are created and my window here is still loading, so I need to wait. Okay, as you can see at the bottom it says Gradle build is working, so it's still building my project. So be patient with Android. Do not try to hurry. Do not try to be confused with it. Now, meanwhile, it loads. What I will do is I will try to explain a little bit about the Android window. So now once you open the Android window, the first thing you see is your coding area. It has two main files. One is called your activity main.xml. One is called main activity.java. Now your entire user interface we develop using something called XML. Within Android Studio, your entire UI is basically developed using XML components, XML text. The actual logic behind the operational activities, events, management of data is done through Java. So technically you would be using two different languages, one thing called XML, one thing called Java. Using XML, we say that we design the Android. Using Java, we control the design. We provide the controlling events, data processing, and all the basic operations. I will show you how you do that. So there are two files for that particular purpose. Okay. On the right side, you will see, on the left, you will see this project window. This is very, again, important area where all your folder structure is formed. Okay. And it's currently loading, forming. Like I said, it does take a time. It will, when you create a new project, for every new project, it will download or not download. In other words, from its own local repository, it will create an APIs and download the copy paste the APIs into new folder. So you can see this, it's importing new files from its own repository and adding it into your Android project so that your Android project can run independently. Okay, that's the basic idea for it. Finally. Okay, so give it a time, be patient with it. It takes few minutes sometimes, depending on the PC and everything. But like I said, it just took a few minutes for me as well to install and basically run the Android systems. So now you get a better view of what we have. So this is our project window area where all our project window settings are located, and the basic information we have available here. We use this area to navigate between various different files and which file you're working on. Remember, by default, you get two files. One is XML, where we design our UI, and Java file, main activity Java file, where we provide the control and functions with that. On the middle area, you would find within, if you use activity main XML file, this is where our design comes into play. Okay, so all the components are here. So using Android Studio, it's as simple as, to a certain point, dragging and drop. Unlike Java, unlike if I use HTML or CSS, Word or PHP, where we have to use programming from A to Z. Android में क्या होता है कि यार इसमें काफी हद तक चीज already बनाई हुई है. All you need to do is you need to understand the basic flow and basic structure of how Android is working. थोड़ा सा मैं उसको explain करूंगा बस, ठीक है. उसके बाद आपका काम करना बहुत आसान हो जाता है. अब उसमें है क्या कि आपका ये Android Studio के अंदर we have this palettes in which already components are created. All these text fields, different type of text fields, buttons, different types of buttons, widgets, different types of widgets, layouts, different types of layouts, containers, helpers, Google-based things, legacy things. All these things are already there. All we need to do is drag and drop them. Components are created. When we drag and drop them, the basic XML for there is automatically created. See, that's the logic of it, that we don't have to work with XML. That's why we majorly focus on Java, so that we provide the control based on what we are trying to do. So this is our main design area, the final app look and the component look. When we design a component, it's this is the like final layout, and the structure of the components are here. We will explain and go into the difference between as we put more components here. Here is your component tree. Okay, so Android is referring to each of these as your components. So your text field is a component, your button is a component, your image is a component. All these are your components. You place these components here, and their structure and hierarchy is basically shown here. That how you have nested those components. You can place a component within a component. For example, a container within a container, or you can apply various different layouts inside a container. Okay. Like I said, we will be working this in future classes, so don't worry about that. So we will be using these containers. We will be using this layout. We will be using this to create the buttons. We will be using this project window to navigate between multiple files, multiple windows that we will be creating. So do ensure that you make yourself familiar with it. Then one other thing that we had already discussed. Hang on. Okay. Something called AVD. Okay. Android simulator that we use. So I will talk about this in a moment. So this is our basic window or basic GUI of what we call Android Studio. Let's start building first app. So if I come here very quickly, I click on Hello World. This is the default component or what we call text view already created for us. So if I go inside the text here, you would find that various different text components are there. इनमें से हम कोई भी बना सकते हैं. What we do is we can create a plain text, we create a text view, password, email, and so on and so forth. Okay. What I said, okay, I need this text view component. हमने text view component बना दिया. As soon as I drag, you notice कि उसके अंदर जो है ना ये जंजीरें बनकर आ रही हैं. These are known as constraints. We will talk about these constraints in next class. But what primarily these constraints are, that they are here to fix your components. कि वो component कहाँ पे कैसे नजर आना चाहिए. ठीक है. जब हम ये component बना लेते हैं, let me bring this window here. तो जब हम component बना लेते हैं, तो इस component की फिर settings हम यहाँ पे temper करते हैं. So when we have the component available, मैंने component create कर दिया. If I delete this component, it's deleted. Oh, sorry. If I come here, right click, and I can say clear constraints, copy, delete the component. Component delete हो गया. In order to recreate it, I will come inside the palette window, text view, click and drag and drop it here. मेरा component create हो गया. ठीक. अब मुझे इस component के साथ कुछ settings करनी है, font size बड़ा करना है, information करनी है. उसके लिए हम यहाँ पर आ जाएंगे. Attributes window के अंदर. Within this attributes window, we have multiple different options that allows us to control the components structure. For example, it's constraints. Now, constraints is basically dependent on layout. Layout means कि आपकी app का layout क्या होगा. How will the components be organized on your window, on your mobile screen? That's considered as a layout. There are various different layouts. We will be talking about them as we go along. By default, now it uses constraint layout in our latest Android 2021 version. Constraint means that we specify manually this object is which constraint to what. Constraint का basic मतलब होता है we bind something to something else. So this hand is constrained to this. So wherever this hand goes, this hand will follow. Okay, it's like that. So when we constrain, for example, one pen with another. So now this basically means that this is my main constraint, or this pen has been constrained to this. So now wherever this pen goes, this pen will also follow because it has been constrained. Technically, there is no physical connection. This is separate, this is separate. But we use the constraint algorithm to constrain an object virtually with one object to another. So wherever this object flows, the second follow independent of its physical connection. Well, I hope it explains a little bit. So this is what happens. So now this window is basically constrained from left side, from right side. This basically means that I have constrained my component from left to right. Okay. And because I've done left, so initially it went to left, then right, so right. So now I have a left to right constraint. from both sides. So my component will remain at the center of screen because half constraint is there, half constraint is there. As simple. Okay. So this is basically where we set these constraints. I could have clicked on these plus buttons also to set a constraint. Similarly, what I do is if I come down here, you would find there are lots of different attributes. For example, text view. So I can say BSIT app1 hello world. I gave it my own name. Okay. I can remove these underscores. So this text is basically your text field name. As okay. So this was what I can do. Similarly, you can come into this split window button here at the top right corner. If you can see this, here you will find the XML code for this thing. Okay. So this is the XML code that was auto-generated for this particular text field. We can write our own code here as well. So for example, I can come here and I can write text size. Okay. And I can give it, for example, 20. And this can be SP. Okay. So you can see the text size has increased. For example, if I give it 25, it becomes even more. I can give it, for example, 45. So now it becomes even more. Too large to be broken up. So I will just give it 20 size. Okay. Now 20 size SP stands for what we call SP का short form था. मैंने कहीं पे note किया था. Scale independent. Yes. Because we have different screen sizes. Okay. Every mobile phone has a different screen size. So normally text के अंदर या तो हम word जब काम करते हैं तो word के अंदर हम DP points use करते हैं. 12 size, 13, 14 size, 15 size या दूसरी applications हम pixel based काम करते हैं. In Android we use different terminology because in Android the pixel size is not important, the screen size matters, and every other device is a different screen size. So they have used with a unique unit called SP, which is scale independent, which basically means that it doesn't matter what your screen size is, it will automatically adjust to that particular percentage ratio of your screen. Okay. So if I use, for example, 20, it becomes like a 20 size, but this is scale independent. Okay. So, or in other words, screen independent. So here what I did, I edited the code. I just used text size is equal to 20 SP. I can use different formations for that as well. We will get into the coding later on. So my code is almost ready. So I close the split window. I go back into the design view. I can create a button here as well. So I come here into buttons, click on the button, drop the button here. I come inside the view. Now to constrain this button, I need to do that. Otherwise it will jump. It won't know where my button is supposed to be. So what I do is I said, okay, constrain it on the left, but so it moves to the left. So now this button is fixed on the left side. You can do that. You can constrain multiple objects with respect to each other as well. Or you can come here in this attribute window and click on this button. So if I click on this button here, this will basically mean that my constraint is being done on the right side. So now this button is also at the center of the page. Okay. So we have a simple hello world application created. I'm just trying to give a little bit more explanation, but I hope you follow along. So basic activity, components, split code window, we create our code, attribute window, we create our attributes. Okay, I will explain the process of creating applications more detail. I'm just trying to give an overview of what different applications are allowing us to do. Once we have this thing, now we need to run it. I think not vertically constrained. So see this, there is a red dot here. This indicates that there is still some problem with the layout. If I come into its panel, it gives me an issue, error here, not vertically constrained. So basically means that it is on left and right, but it doesn't know where it stands vertically. So I can come here and click on this plus icon. It will vertically constrain this component with its current location. So you can click on these plus icons as well. So if I select this button here, it says not vertically constrained. So let me just move it upwards a little bit and click on this blue button. Once I click on it, it will also do the automatic constraint. So you can drag and drop, or you can click on these blue buttons. It will use its current location, 201 pixels from its top. It entered that value here, that this component needs to be 201 pixels from its top. So it is also now vertically constrained. So you need to provide at least one constraint when you're working with this thing. Hope you follow through. So once this is done, now let's just run this application. In order to run this application, you need something called AVD man. AVD is your mobile device simulator. You need to have that. So if you haven't installed it, you again need to install it. So I come into my AVD manager. It will say that I have already one device available, but you will find that it has something called create virtual device. If you have not installed it, ये यहाँ पे एक बड़ा बटन बनकर आ जाएगा. हमने क्या करना है, create virtual device पे click करना है. As soon as I click on it, a window will pop up that will ask me which mobile device basically you want to use. Okay, so this is like installing a virtual simulator for a particular mobile device. Okay, so for example, I have already installed Pixel 4a. If I need to install Pixel 4a 4 XL, or for example Pixel 5, I will select that particular mobile. I will jump this window away, click on the next. As soon as I click on the next, it will say that this particular mobile is supporting all these different versions of your API. Okay, the least it supports is called 22 Android Lollipop 5.1. Okay, so I need to download it and I need to install it. So you will click on this download button, it will go on the internet. So you again need an internet. Okay, so remember, one main thing I had said that when we work with Android Studio, do ensure you have an active internet connection. Most of the time, it will try to do something fishy with your internet as well. It will try to download few files as you go along. So you click on the download button, it will download your required APK, API files for that particular version. Then click on next and it will be installed. Simple as that. So to install this AVD, this is all you need to do. Okay, so you click on virtual device, select a particular phone, download API, click on next, it will install. Then once it is installed, now that mobile phone, it should be here. All we need to do is click on this play button. What this play button will do is that it will take something called Gradle building and build our APK file from the source code. Now, Gradle is something that is responsible for compiling your code and taking your code and building an APK file for it. Okay, I hope it explains. Just like a Java compiler or JDK compiler, it will take your code and build an APK file. So basically, your Gradle is responsible for building that. Now, somehow it ran my old application. I think I don't want this app. Or is it still loading? Hmm. Okay. I think, hang on. I need to do one more thing. Let it close. I need to come back into my code. Or यहाँ पे sometimes what we do is I need to clear my settings. Somewhere यहाँ पे एक button था clear my settings and file. This one, invalidate cache and restart. Okay, what this will do is it will remove the cache from my previous project and work on the new project. Okay, maybe I've installed supported. So what I do is I clear this cache and then I can do that, but I noticed the error that installation failed due to sufficient. So let me just click on this again and let's try to run it one more time before I actually clear the cache, because I think I closed it too soon and that's why I was getting an invalid output. So let it wait. It's still installing. Okay. I didn't monitor that. So once I click on the play button, you will notice your emulator should pop up and wait for that installation to complete and your app will appear. Okay. Previously, I closed it and I didn't wait for it too soon. Okay. So you need to be little bit patient with it and wait for it. Okay. आवाज आ रही है बच्चा सबको?
Yes sir, are you?
चलें, so you can see this कि मैं application